news break from Edge of the Web Radio.
Welcome back to The Edge. I'm going to introduce you to Jason Barnard for this version of The Edge Flash. Jason Barnard's been on the show a number of times. He's an author and digital marketer who specializes in brand SERP optimization and knowledge panel management. He's the founder and CEO of Kalicube, and that Kalicube helps clients optimize their brand SERP and manage their own knowledge panel. He's been on a number of different platforms over the years communicating this concepts inside of search engine optimization. He's been on a lot of different digital marketing publications like Search Engine Journal, Search Engine Land, and regularly writes for others, including WordLift, SE Ranking, SEMrush, Search Engine Watch, and the like, Search Metrics, as well as Trustpilot. So he's been on the show a number of times. We certainly want to welcome him back. Jason, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm really happy to be here and excited as well because we've got big news.
We do have big news. We've had you on a number of times here, and in full disclosure to our audience, Site Strategics is an agency affiliate with Kalicube, but this is by no means is a promotion. Well, it's not a sponsorship. It certainly is promoting some news here. This is a quick news update that I wanted to make sure our listeners would pay attention to. I caught up with you last week whenever you had a meeting with some of the agency relationships that you had, and you actually shared some news with us about the changes that you've seen in the knowledge graph. Some very interesting news from the September core update, but it actually predates that in July. Some major changes. What's going on in the knowledge graph? What happened in July? And how did that affect the core update in September?
Right. Yeah. Well, wonderful question. Thank you very much. Firstly, I'd like to say that the knowledge graph at Google is actually multiple verticals. So there are multiple iterations of the knowledge graph, including Google Maps, Google Books, Google Scholars. So we're talking about the knowledge vault, which is what we traditionally refer to as the knowledge graph. And there's a tracker on kalicube.pro that you can go and have a look at. And the knowledge vault is Google's certain knowledge that most of the time has been taken from Wikipedia in the past and a few seed set websites, and is now increasingly independent of Wikipedia and those other sources such as Google Books and so on and so forth. And what's happened is the knowledge vault grew by 30% in terms of the number of entities it contains in just 4 days, which is huge in anybody's book.
Compare that to any other changes that you've actually seen in the past. Sorry, Jason, but I mean, have you ever seen anything like this before?
We have never seen a 30% increase in the size of the knowledge vault in such a short period of time. We have seen 30% increases over a year, but never in just 4 days. So that's point number one. Point number two is when we looked into the data, the only entity type that increased was person entity types. The number of corporation entity types and organization entity types, event entity types stayed static. And the number of person entity types increased threefold. So 3 times more people on July the 19th than there were on July the 14th.
That's huge. And that's huge for a number of reasons, Jason. But before anything else, I want to make sure that our listeners understand the difference between the knowledge vault and knowledge panels. Can you kind of disambiguate those? See what I did there?
Brilliant. Knowledge vault contains the facts that Google has understood. It's like a massive encyclopedia, a truly massive Wikipedia. If you consider that Wikipedia has 6 million articles in English and the knowledge vault contains 50 billion entities, then you can see the difference in size. But it's like Wikipedia, but millions of times bigger, literally. And the knowledge panel is the visual representation of Google's understanding of an entity on the search engine results page, the SERP.
Right.
So a knowledge vault is Google's encyclopedia, and it goes and looks in its encyclopedia and then shows the facts if it feels it's relevant in Google search results, and that is the knowledge panel.
And the knowledge panel itself, it takes a little while before it trusts itself enough to be able to display information. There's a number of qualifying factors and corroborations before a panel ever exists, right? So what we've seen is Google basically understanding its world more than ever before, and more explicitly, the people that actually represent information and the purveyors of information that it actually understands. The knowledge panels on those individuals have also increased, right?
Yeah, and interestingly, the number of panels has increased less than the number of people in the knowledge vault. And that's because the knowledge panels only show on a search result for people's names
Right.
if Google is sufficiently confident in the information.
There
and
it is.
if it thinks that information will be helpful to the searcher. So the amount of information in the knowledge graph is vastly superior, vastly bigger than the amount of information it's actually showing in the knowledge panels when you search on Google.
You had some categories of these person entities in the vault with the subtitles of those and percentage increase, is it the percentage of those entities or percentage increase of those entities? We could go through them real quick. You had writer at 21%. Was that an increase itself or what?
Yeah.
So it's an increase. So
increase in the number of people who were tagged as writers in the knowledge vault.
So here's the deal, folks. Listening to this and looking at the list, you're dealing with researcher, had almost a 2% increase. Mathematicians, a 3.4% increase. Historian, get this, 33% increase from 3 days prior, okay? Business person, around 8%. Entrepreneur, around 8%. And scientists, around 1%. Now, I want to look at those last three, not the writers themselves, right? If I could, just take a moment here and kind of break this apart, crack this coconut, because you actually have a beach behind you, so I'm just going to use the analogy. Let's crack this open here for a second here, because those three, historian, business person, and entrepreneur, right? That says something to me more so than writers. Writers are much more prolific. They're out. It's very easy to corroborate those writers because they are, by very nature, writing for content consumption, right? Historians, yes. But entrepreneurs and business persons, right, they're not going to be creating their wake nearly as much. And Google's now understanding these people as it relates to the companies that they work for and the companies that they've built. Historian is this type of passive space where they're not truly broadcasting content regularly, but Google's understanding their role in how to understand the things that they report about. So it now understands new pivot points to have how to understand a company, how to understand information that may be related to a historian. What are we to make about that? As I lay these chess pieces out on the board here, Jason, what do you think about the relationships of those individuals?
No, that's really, really interesting in terms of Google is actually actively looking for all of these business people. Let's focus on them, business people and entrepreneurs who don't have a Wikipedia page. So it suddenly said, right, I want to understand who these people are. I want to understand who's running the businesses, who's making the businesses, creating the businesses, commercial approach. And I'd like to add one chess piece is author versus writer. Now, an author is somebody who writes books. So an author would have a type such as romantic or science fiction, whereas a writer would be a writer on a topic.
Right.
And what Google did, and we didn't share this publicly before, is that it removed all references to authors in the knowledge vault and replaced them with writer, except for science fiction author and romance author. So somebody who is actually an author of books retained that title, and everyone else changed to a writer. And our reading of that is Google saying, right, let's put everybody as a writer, and then we can start to attach EEAT, writer, researcher, historian. Makes sense from an EEAT perspective. And as you say, business person and entrepreneur makes a sense from understanding business. So they're looking to understand who's writing the content, but also who is behind the business. And that's huge. Thank you for that, Eric.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll give you one more thing that I'm thinking about as I was listening to your original presentation, as well as reading your articles here. There's another jump in knowledge that I think we're seeing here with historian and business persons and the like, is that Google's trying to understand niche language in business verticals. We saw from the product review updates, the 5 versions of that, and then it turned into review updates when it came down to services of businesses. Now it has actually unpacked and reset individuals and understanding more about their relationship to their businesses and said services of those businesses. It's trying to learn more, and it's trusting itself more and kind of breaking away from the moorings of Wikipedia. And now it's looking at the site content and who's writing about that site content. Okay. So you've got 30% more people that it understands. Now is the important time to have your people, your person entities on your websites, because there's a direct relationship to what they're writing about in the content of a blog, in the series of categories of blogs, your service pages itself. It's going to be opening the door for it understanding and trusting the information that you have on your websites, as long as there is a relationship to those writers and those historians and those business individuals. I think this is a triangulation process that Google's going through, trying to understand the world further.
100%. And as we were discussing earlier, before coming on air, the approach that Google's taking is, I can understand a website and I can understand potentially the website owner, the person or the company behind the website, because that's fixed and I can associate any content on that website with the website itself and or the entity of the website owner if I've understood it. But when somebody's writing for a website, you don't necessarily write for the website that you own. So I have jasonbarnard.com, but I don't write on there very much. I write on Kalicube.com or Search Engine Land or Search Engine Journal or SEMrush or SE Ranking or WordLift for that matter. And Google needs to understand who I am in order to be able to understand that my contribution to WordLift, SEMrush, Search Engine Journal, Search Engine Land is valid and relevant. And if I suddenly wrote for Forbes, for example, that's business, but I could still be writing about digital marketing. Right. And if it understands who I am and that my specialist subject is digital marketing, writing on Forbes has extra value both for me and for Forbes.
All right. So we have a reveal here.
Forbes.
We have a reveal here, absolutely, that we're now seeing a bit more of the knowledge vault game that is happening here, and Google's understanding more. It's breaking away from Wikipedia. It's relying on these entities more and how it understands it. And our goal now is to continue to disambiguate these individuals. And then we swing back around to what we understand the core of SEO is. Inside of the Search Quality Raters guidelines, there was a change that you noted that really didn't get observed in this last update. Can you share with us what that was?
Yeah, for parts of the quality rater guidelines, they changed the term website with website owner. So the quality raters are looking for the owner of the website, and it can be a corporation, it can be a person, it can be an organization. So what Google's trying to do there is say, well, it's fine that we understand the website and we can count links to that website so we can evaluate the popularity, the authority, and the credibility of that website through links. But what would be much better would be to understand the entity behind the website, i.e. the website owner, and then we can start applying other signals, such as mentions of the brand, such as where the brand is present, such as partners of the brand. Through a website, you can't see that. So the website becomes increasingly less important, and the entity behind the website owner, is now the single most important thing. If you're not understood to be the website owner, or Google doesn't understand who you are as the website owner, you're missing out on a lot of EEAT signals and relying solely on links, when EEAT is obviously much more than links.
And there's the game right there. This is what you've been mapping out, and that's why I honed in on the entrepreneur and scientist and business owners, because the website owner in QRG has a direct relationship to the entities that have just increased up to 30%. You swing back around to this and you look at EEAT as the most critical piece here, and it's not worrying about Google, not worrying about the content nearly as much as who's behind the content, right? And now you have to understand that I think it was Dwayne Forrester that actually tweeted out this weekend, knowledge graphs, they are the center of search today. Skip this element and you'll be playing catch up. And maybe stop building Wikipedia pages to help promote your business. Google cares less and less. So it's wanting to trust the person's entity world and what they're talking about, not just churning up content from different websites. So it's piercing the veil, so to speak, and understanding who's behind everything. I think this is huge. I really do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I said we called it the killer whale update because it's huge and it's making a big splash. I've been doing SEO since 1998 when Google started. That's 25 years. I've done SEO as long as Google has been around. And I have never seen anything this big because, as you say, it's so foundational and fundamental and such a big change. And from that perspective, as Dwayne says, the knowledge graph, Google's understanding of entities, who's behind all of the content we're creating and the offers we're providing, is central to SEO, and you cannot now avoid it. I mean, we were focusing on EEAT because that's the flavor of the month and it's an easy way to get people's attention. But the understanding of entities will go much further than just EEAT. And EEAT in and of itself is already enormous. And a huge point there, it's dropping Wikipedia. It's used Wikipedia to get this far, and that's great. But Wikipedia is tiny. The knowledge vault is huge. Google cannot rely on Wikipedia over time, and it's now dropped the Wikipedia reliance that it had before. So you no longer need to be wiki famous, wiki notable in order to get a knowledge panel. And that's huge. And it's so easy today to get a knowledge panel, but it's quite difficult to manage a knowledge panel. And there's a subtle difference there. Getting a knowledge panel is easy. Building the confidence is going to take you time, and managing it is the art. What's in the knowledge panel? What does Google understand? And that's a huge long-term job, and that's exactly the job we do at Kalicube, and that's exactly why I built Kalicube Pro, which is our SaaS platform, which automates the process of figuring out how to educate Google so it represents your brand or your personal brand the way you want in the knowledge panel, and it understands you 100% correctly.
Perfect. And we're a huge fan of Kalicube. We're using it all the time. I think the paradigm that we want to really map here is that the trust that Google had in Wikipedia, albeit as fluid and, challenging at times of what that was, Google was, it had its training wheels on. Now it's writing by itself. It's pedaling by itself, folks. It's got a level of confidence that it doesn't have to refer to Wikipedia information. It's looking at other citable sources, other trustworthy content in niches. But here's the thing. It's also trusting in your content that's written by trustworthy entities. Now, the fundamental change here is instead of just mapping to what Google understands from a Wikipedia standpoint and putting in structured data references to Wikipedia, you now need to build your knowledge graph on your own website and understand as clearly as you can what Google understands about your specialty, your service, your industry, and try to map and own your knowledge graph. As soon as you get that perspective, then you're not just churning up pages for keywords. You shouldn't be doing that anyway. It should be filling in the gaps of the knowledge of a particular service and its relationship to customers, and then making sure that your subject matter experts are there. You're promoting them. The SME has a much larger role than ever before. And understanding SME content clusters needs to be understood of what they're contributing into. You could very well have a subject matter expert that only wrote one page, but if you have 5 different subtopics of a service, they need to write to each of those subtopics to create that relationship inside the knowledge graph of your own website. Sorry, I went on a rant there, Jason. Hopefully you agree there.
Yep, no, 100%. And what we do with WordLift a lot is work on the idea that Kalicube Pro cleans up your digital ecosystem. It's what Jarno van Driel calls implicit semantics. And what he means is that we're cleaning up the digital ecosystem and communicating with Google through other sources. And then the schema markup that WordLift would create or Yoast would create is explicit semantics. So what we do at Kalicube is clean up the digital ecosystem, create a consistent brand message, which is implicit semantics, push these cornerstone entities, which is the company founder, and potentially the authors, into the knowledge graph. And then the knowledge graph that you build with WordLift, for example, can then be ported into the knowledge vault on the back of those cornerstone entities that you've optimized with Kalicube Pro. And it makes total sense from a brand perspective and a personal brand perspective to look after your entire digital ecosystem properly, because that not only means Google understands, but it means that your audience will see a consistent brand message from top to bottom of funnel at every single touch point. And that makes human sense. So it's foundational for me. And anybody who isn't working on optimizing their entities, their cornerstone entities, the company, the founder, and the authors, is missing out on a huge opportunity.
So writers, more importantly than authors. Let's split that difference, because Google's just shown us that it's not looking at authors from that designation anymore. It gives you the ability to really expand who's contributing into your content.
Right, because you're a writer on a topic, whereas you're an author with a science fiction
Right.
genre. So you're an author in a genre, but you're a writer on a topic. So they're looking for topical authority for writers, which makes total sense.
Last point, Jason, from, I almost called you Knowledge Graph. I literally almost called you Knowledge Graph. Boy.
I keep saying Kalicube instead of Google. I'm getting really confused as well. Yeah. So anyway, yes, I'm Mr. Knowledge Graph.
Mr. Knowledge Graph. It's like Mr. Wizard. The last point I wanted to make, I think this could very well be AI content killer, is as it's understanding the different writers and it's actually understood more of persons. This is the opportunity to be able to link your content to individuals, not have spun up content. And if you're genning content at scale, Google now understands who wrote it and also understands what else they have written. And if it's actually so far removed from their niche nomenclature, it could very well spell doom for all of these strategies of just flooding the channel with AI content. So this could very well be the best response that we see from Google in this respect.
Yep, 100%. And to take that a little bit further, the late Bill Sklowski was talking about author vectors and the fact that Google can recognize who wrote a piece from the style. So they don't even need the name at the bottom, potentially. So if they've understood the author, they can isolate the style. They can then tell if the author actually wrote it or if they're just adding their name to a piece of AI content. And they can also tell who the author is without the author actually signing at the bottom. So that's point number one. That is really cool. And it makes total sense, but it also means that Google have pushed this through surprisingly quickly, in the sense that a threefold increase in people in the knowledge vault is absolutely huge. And they've created an awful lot of junk. There's loads of duplicates. There's loads of issues. We've gone through the data. Some of it doesn't make sense. For example, Samuel L. Jackson, that exact string of characters, there are 200 of him.
Oh, my Lord.
200,
just think about that for a second. 200 Samuel L. Jacksons. How many snakes on a plane are there?
I was going to say, I'm tired of all these Samuel L. Jacksons on my plane.
There it is. So it has to clean up its own mess, and it all came from its misunderstanding of entities, but it expanded and it's trusting itself more to clean that up and disambiguate, right?
Yes, it expanded incredibly quickly, and I'll come to that in a moment. But so they've created a huge mess, and they're going to have to clean it up. And my guess is they're going to clean it up in December, because every year in July and December there are huge knowledge graph updates, knowledge vault updates. So what they've done is they've pushed this forward really, really quickly, made a huge mess in July that they're going to try and clean up, I would guess, in December. So the next update for people is going to be in December. And if your information isn't in place today, it's already too late, because there's a 2-month time lag between placing your information and being part of that update.
But that shouldn't stop anybody. That should not stop anybody from getting their information organized on their about pages, on their person's pages. I mean, folks, if you don't have listings of bios of the founders of your company or subject matter experts inside of your company, you must do it right now. Start building that trust inside of your organization in your web content, because if you can't get that rung, or if you are not optimized for the potential December update, you're still leaning into what Google's signaling to us, is that you've got to be able to bring your entities forward. That's what it's calling for.
Yes. And the other thing, of course, is look at how Google's algorithm updates function, is that they do a huge update, then another huge update to clean up the mess they made with the first one.
Right.
Then gradually they work it into daily or weekly or monthly updates. So don't just think, oh, I've missed the December one as well. Think, I need to do this because it's going to grow and grow and grow and grow, and it's going to become an integral part of the knowledge vault and knowledge panels that will update more and more frequently. So you need to get ready and you need to be there. And if we come back a step to why did they do it so quickly, i.e. July, so much, and on writers and people? And it's all to do with, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to start to preempt you. Keep on going. I got a thought about that.
Well, it was Mary Ann from the Kalicube team who suggested this, and she'd never done digital marketing before joining Kalicube, and she's been at Kalicube 1.5 years. And she spotted something I'd missed, which is, of course, it's to start to try to master AI spam.
Absolutely.
And from that perspective, if you're not recognized an author, it's what you were pretty much saying earlier on. If you're recognized an author, Google can then say, well, I know this is genuine content. And it can put to one side a huge amount of content, say, well, I'll only use it in the last possible scenario if I can't find somebody who's actually written something about it that I trust.
Right.
So the AI content will still perform, but it will only perform when there's no better alternative. And if you can be understood as an entity and provide a better alternative, you will beat the AI pretty much every time, unless you write really badly.
There you go. And I'll double down on that. I think Marianne's absolutely right. But I also think this is the preamble for the release of SGE. Granted, they still have to figure out how to Yep, I did that.
Speaking of which, sorry, we're releasing a video this week that I found explicit mentions in SGE of Google saying some of this information came from the knowledge graph.
There it is.
And it's dates of birth, it's years of release for music, music and places where people were born. I'm releasing a video about it, but it actually, you know where it shows the little cards with the sources?
Yep.
One of the cards is now, this comes from the Google Knowledge Graph.
Beautiful.
Wow.
That's optimization right there. So, I mean, I can't even forecast when they're going to release it, but they had to get this done first. They had to clean up AI in order to have a trustworthy SGE. So we're actually going to be talking about that at Brighton SEO US next week on our panelists. So thank you for this opportunity to be able to talk about and unpack the knowledge graph discoveries and the updates, because the timing could not be better for what we're about to talk about here. So, Jason, we certainly want to promote Kalicube Pro. It's a great tool. It's a scalpel of entity definition where you can clearly disambiguate the noise out there and educate Google on the SMEs in your organization, as well as the specialty and the services that your organization provides. Anything else you want to promote on the show here today?
Yeah, number one is thank you for allowing me to get overexcited on your show.
No problem.
Number two is I built Kalicube Pro 8 years ago to do exactly this. This is the moment Kalicube Pro has been waiting for
Absolutely.
8 years. And over those 8 years, we've collected 8 billion data points. And I figured out pretty much everything there is to know about educating Google's knowledge graph and putting information in Google's brain explicitly, which ironically is called implicit semantics, according to Jarno van Driel. But I'm so excited because I've been waiting 8 years for this. And now is the time, and now is the moment, and that's so cool. And suddenly people are coming to Kalicube Pro, whereas before I was struggling to get people to even listen to me. So I'm really happy.
Congratulations on all the success. You've been waiting for that wave for the last 8 years. See, because he's got the beach behind him and the waves.
I've got the waves.
And you're going to be riding the Kalicube surfboard. There it is. Sweet. Couldn't be better. All right. Well, we certainly are going to be. Check out the search engine land articles, the last 2 articles that have just been posted up there. Some valuable information there. Reach out to Kalicube, reach out to Jason on Twitter, X, at Jason M. Barnard, as well as on Facebook. You can find him, and LinkedIn, you can find him. And you can also track down Kalicube on YouTube. Anything in the future that you want to talk about before we sign off here?
Yeah, I think the next huge update after the December cleanup is going to be corporations. So if you're working on a corporation, get your person entities right first, get your corporation entities right as well, because that's going to be next July's update. I'm relatively confident.
I would argue that this is part of the corporation's update, is by understanding the business individuals that are part of that. So there's a 3D chess for you.
In which case, you need to build your person entities around your corporation at the same time as building your corporation, because then you're going to get a double bonus.
There it is.
Next July. And, you know, wow, next July is going to be exciting.
It's going to be Christmas in July. I guarantee it.
It's Christmas in July.
Yes, we got him to sing. All right, Jason, thank you so much for joining the Edge Flash. Thanks for getting that information out to us as quickly as you did. Certainly, we'll touch base with you offline as well, online, offline, off show, and catch up on a couple of these key points as well. But thanks for joining us. We certainly want to get our Edge listeners pumped for what's going to be happening in December.
Super. Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun, Aaron and Jacob.
Thank you.
He came out with a win.
Yep. I said one good thing.
Very good.
I'll say one more. What's all this stuff next to you?
All the stuff now. So funny that you asked, Jacob. And so we are actually having a raffle, a giveaway at Brighton SEO USA in San Diego November 9th and 10th. We're hosting our podcast there. We're having a number of panelists talking about this very thing, AI, SGE, and the knowledge graph in between. But we're also giving this kit away. It's a Rode USB plus mic. It's also an Audio-Technica set of headphones, as well as a microphone isolation shield. We're going to be giving that away on Friday at 3 p.m. Come over to the booth at Edge Media Studios and record with us, a couple questions, and you'll be in the raffle for that giveaway on Friday. Sound good?
Sounds perfect.
Well, it will sound perfect as long as you get this kit.
They were sitting there the whole time, and I just didn't know why it was there.
It was bugging you, huh?
And if you're listening to the podcast, you should probably go check out a screenshot or watch us on YouTube.
Absolutely. We'll throw it out there.
Otherwise, you're confused at this point as a podcast
I had
listener.
not defined this entity correctly. All right. Thanks so much, Jason. Really, really appreciate jumping on board real quick. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Very good. Well, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Edge of the Web on YouTube. And if you're feeling up to it today, give us a rating over at ratethispodcast.com/edge. Thanks to our sponsors. Reach out to them from the sponsor notes, Site Strategics, as well as others that we have on the shows. That's how they know that you have checked them out through us. Check out everything over at edgeofthewebradio.com, edgeofthewebradio.com. Watch the news, as well as the second part of the Lydia Infante segment that we're going to be dropping this week. And be sure to join us at Brighton SEO. We're still giving away tickets at Brighton SEO. Go over to edgeofthewebradio.com/Brighton SEO and enter your name into the raffle. You'll be able to get a free single-day ticket next week. It's coming in. We'd love to meet you out there in beautiful San Diego. Pick up some sunglasses from us as well. We got some cool swag. All right, so from all of us over at Edge, stay safe, stay well, and do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.